Hello, students of enlightenment. Our lesson for now is of our imaginary adversaries. We start with a parable by Chuang Tzu. Once there was a man who was so disturbed by seeing his own shadow and so displeased with his own footsteps that he decided to get rid of both. The method to his madness was simple. He got up and ran. However, each time he planted his foot, another footstep was made, while his shadow kept up with him without the slightest difficulty. He attributed his failure to not running fast enough. So, he ran faster and faster without stopping, until he fell dead. He failed to understand that if he simply sat still in a shady spot, his shadow would vanish, and if he remained still, there would be no more footsteps. The man creates his own confusion because he rejects himself, he self-censors, does not accept himself, and thus creates a chain of confusion, unhappiness, and internal chaos. Why don't you accept yourself as you are? What's wrong with you? The entire existence accepts you as you are, but you have an ideal to achieve. This ideal is always in the future. It must be so because an ideal cannot exist in the present, and the future is nowhere. It is yet to be born. Because of this ideal, you live in the future, which is nothing but a dream. Due to the ideal, you cannot live here and now. Due to the ideal, you self-censor. All ideologies, all ideals are condemnatory because they create an image in the mind. And when you compare yourself with that image, you always think something is missing, that you have lost something. You lack nothing. You have lost nothing. You are perfect if there is any possibility of perfection. Try to understand this, because only then can you understand the parable of Chuang Tzu, one of the most beautiful parables ever told. It delves into the mechanism of the human mind. Why do you insist on carrying ideals in your mind? Why aren't you enough as you are right at this moment? Why aren't you like the gods? Who prevents you? Who stands in your way? Why can't you enjoy this moment and be happy? Where is the impediment? The impediment is the ideal. How can you enjoy when you are full of anger and the anger has to disappear first? How can you be blissful when you are full of sexuality and the sex has to disappear first? How can you be like gods who celebrate this moment? You are full of greed, anger, passion. They have to disappear, and then you will be like the gods. Thus, the ideal is created, and from the ideal comes the censor. Compare yourself with the ideal, and you will never be perfect because it is impossible. If you say yes, happiness becomes impossible because that yes is the greatest worry. If you say yes, if those conditions are met, I will be happy. Those conditions will never be met. And secondly, even if they were to be met, you would have lost the capacity to enjoy. And moreover, when those conditions are met, a rare thing because it is not possible, your mind will create new ideals. That is how you lose life after life. You create an ideal and you want to be that ideal. Then you feel inferior and censored by the dreams of your mind. You condemn the dreams. They disturb you. What I am telling you is just the opposite. Be like the gods right now. Let there be anger, sex, greed. Celebrate life, and then you will be able to feel more joy, more bliss, less greed, less sex. Then you will have found the path. It cannot be otherwise. When a person can celebrate life fully, all the bad disappears. But if you first try solutions for the bad to disappear, it will never disappear. It's like fighting with darkness. Your house is full of darkness, and you ask how to light a candle before dispersing this darkness. That is what you have been doing. You say that first greed must disappear, and then ecstasy will come. What stupidity! You say that first the darkness has to disappear to light a candle, as if the darkness could put up barriers. Darkness has no entity. It is nothing. It is not solid. It is simply an absence, not a presence. Light the light, and the darkness will disperse. Be a blissful flame, and all the bad will disappear. The anger, the greed, the sex, whatever. They are not solid, but merely the absence of a blissful, ecstatic life. Because you cannot enjoy, you get angry. Not because someone provokes the anger, simply you cannot enjoy. You feel unhappy, and you get angry. Others are mere excuses. Because you cannot have fun, you do not receive love, hence the sex. That is settling for shadows. Then the mind says, first, destroy all this, and then God will descend. It is one of the most obvious stupidities of humanity, the oldest, and it follows everyone. It is difficult for you to think that right now you are like the gods, but I ask you, what is lacking? What fails? You are alive, breathing, conscious. What more do you need at this moment? Be like the gods. Even if you feel it is just a pretend, do not worry. Even if you think, I am just pretending to be like a god, start with the pretend, and soon reality will follow. In reality, you are, and as soon as you start to exist like a god, all misery, all confusion, all darkness will disappear. Transform into light, and in that transformation, there will be no conditions to meet. I will comment on this beautiful parable next. Once, there was a man who was so disturbed by seeing his own shadow and so displeased with his own footsteps that he decided to get rid of them. Remember that you are that man, and that this man exists in all of us. This logic is also yours. He was disturbed by his shadow. Why? What is wrong with a shadow? Why should a shadow disturb you? Perhaps because you have heard that gods do not cast shadows, that when they walk, no shadow appears. He was disturbed because he heard that you can only become a god when the shadow disappears. What disturbs you if you delve deeper? You will find nothing but the noise of your footsteps. Why does the noise of your footsteps disturb you so much? You are solid, so there must be some noise. You must accept it. But that man had heard that gods do not cast shadows, and that when they walk, no footsteps sound. These gods are nothing but dreams. They exist only in the mind. That heaven is nowhere. When something exists, it creates sound around it. Footsteps, shadows. That's how things are, and nothing can be done to change them. This is nature. If you try to do something about it, it will go wrong. If you try to change it, you will waste your whole life, and in the end, you will realize that you have gotten nowhere. The shadow continues to be cast, the footsteps continue to make noise, and death knocks at your door. Before death knocks at your door, accept yourself, and then a miracle will happen. The miracle is that when you accept yourself, you do not escape from yourself. Right now, all of you are running away from yourselves. Even if you come to me, it is as part of the escape, and therefore you cannot reach me. There is a distance. If you have come to me as an escape, you will achieve nothing, because my job is to help you, not to escape from yourselves. Do not try it. You cannot be others. Everyone has a specific destiny and individuality. Each person's thumbprint is unique and has never existed before, and will never exist again. It belongs only to one person, and there cannot be another like it. The same is true for your being. You have a unique and incomparable individual being that has not existed before and will not exist again. Celebrate it. Everyone experiences something unique because God has given a unique gift to each one, and you censor it. You want something better. You want to be smarter than existence, wiser than the Tao, but you are mistaken. Remember, the part can never be wiser than the whole, and what the whole does is definitive, and you cannot change it. If you try to do it, you will simply waste your life and achieve nothing. The whole is immense. You are an atom. The ocean is immense. You are a drop in it. The ocean is salty, and you try the impossible to be sweet. But the ego desires to do the impossible, the difficult, what cannot be done. Yuan Chu says, "The easy is good. Why can't you do the easy and accept it? Why not say yes to the shadow?" As soon as you say yes, you forget it. It disappears, at least from the mind, though it remains in the body. But what is the problem? How can a shadow create a problem? Right now, you are creating a problem out of everything. That man was confused, disturbed by seeing his shadow. He would have liked to be a god. He would have liked not to have a shadow. But you are already like a god, and there can be nothing that you are not already. How can it be otherwise? You can only be what you are. The transformation consists of moving towards the being that already exists. You can go from here to there, knock on the doors of others, but you will only be playing hide and seek with yourself. It depends on you how many doors you knock on. In the end, you will arrive at your door and realize that your door has always been there. No one can take it away. No one can take away your nature, the Tao. That man was disturbed by his shadow. The method that occurred to him was to flee from it, which is what everyone does. It seems as if the mind has a perverse logic. For example, you are angry. What should you do? The mind will tell you not to be angry. Promise it. And then what happens? You repress the anger. And the more you repress it, the deeper it will go into the roots of your being. Then what will happen is not that sometimes you will be angry and sometimes not. If you have repressed too much, you will be continually angry. It will get into your blood, poison you, and spread to all your relationships. Even if you are in love, the anger will be there, and the love will become violent. Even if you try to help someone, the help will be poisoned because the poison is inside you, and you will carry it in all your acts. They will be a reflection of you. When you feel the same again, the mind will say, "You have not repressed enough. Repress more." The anger arises from repression, and the mind says to repress it more, and then you will feel more anger. Your mind is sexual due to repression, and the mind says to repress it. Photos of naked women. Is it that women are not enough in themselves? Yes, more than enough. Then what is the need? The photograph is always more sexual than a real woman. A real woman has a body and a shadow, and her footsteps sound, and the noise is heard. A photograph is a dream, something completely mental, cerebral, without shadow. A real woman sweats and emits body odor. A photograph does not sweat. A real woman gets angry. A photograph does not. A real woman ages, gets old. A photograph always maintains its youth. A photograph is only mental. Those who repress sex in the body carry it to the mind. Their mind in the midst of sexuality and becomes a disease. It is normal to be hungry, but if you are thinking about food continuously, that is an obsession and a disease. It is normal to eat when you are hungry, and that's it. But if nothing satisfies you, everything goes to the mind. The wife of Mulan Rudin was sick, and they operated on her. A few days later, she came out of the hospital, and I asked how your wife is. Has she recovered from the surgery? He replied, no, she is still talking about it. If you think about something, if you talk about something, it is there. And then it is more dangerous, because the body may recover, but the mind can continue without cease to infinity. The body can recover, but the mind does not. If you repress the hunger in the body, it will go to the mind. You have not gotten rid of the problem. You have pushed it even further inside. If you repress something, it will reach the roots. And then the mind will say that if you do not achieve it, something is wrong, that you are not trying hard enough, that you must try harder. A method occurred to him. The mind has only two alternatives, to fight or to flee. Whenever a problem presents itself, the mind says, fight or flee, and both solutions are wrong. If you fight, you will continue with the problem. If you fight, the problem will continue. If you fight, you will be divided, because the problem is not outside, but inside. For example, if you feel anger and you fight, what will happen is that half of your being will be with the anger, and the other half with the idea of fighting, as if your two hands were to fight. Who would win? You would simply waste your energies. No one would be victorious. You can deceive yourself and think that you have repressed your anger, that you have lowered its fumes, but you will have to do it continuously, without a moment's rest. If you forget for an instant, you will lose the victory. That is why those who have repressed something have to be continually vigilant about it. They always feel fear and cannot relax. Why is it so difficult to relax? Why can't you sleep? Why can't you relax? Because you have repressed so much. You're afraid that if you relax, they will reappear. So-called religious people cannot relax. They're always tense. And this is the cause of the tension. They have repressed something, and you tell them to relax. They know that if they do, the enemy will return. The mind thinks fight. And if you fight, you repress or flee. But where to? Even if you go to the Himalayas, your anger will follow you. It is your shadow. It will follow you. Your sex is your shadow. Wherever you go, your shadow will accompany you. A method occurred to him, wire. So he got up and started running, but each time he put his foot down, a footprint sounded, while his shadow caught up with him without the slightest difficulty. What a surprise! He ran very fast, but the shadow had no difficulty following him without even sweating, without panting. The shadow had no difficulty because a shadow is not solid. It is nobody. The man was sweating and breathing hard, but the shadow was always by his side. The shadow cannot leave you, not by fighting, not by fleeing. Where will you go? Wherever you go, you will carry your person and your shadow. He attributed the failure to not running fast enough, so he ran faster and faster without stopping until he fell dead. We must understand the logic of the mind. If you do not understand it, you will be its victim. The mind has a flawed logic. It is a vicious circle. That man is entirely logical. No error can be found in his logic, no flaw. He is a logician as perfect as Aristotle. He says that if the shadow follows him, it is because he is not running fast enough. If he runs faster and faster, there will come a moment when the shadow cannot reach him. But the shadow is his own and is nobody. It is not that someone is following him. In that case, his logic would be correct. This man would be right. If someone were following him, then he would have every reason in the world. He is not running fast enough, and that is why the other can follow him. But he is mistaken, because there is no one else. The mind is useless. The mind for others, meditation for you. The mind for others, for you, the no mind. That is what Chuang Tzu, Zen, the Sufis, the Ids, all those who know, and all those who have known, Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, insist on. The fundamental thing is that you can use the mind for others and for you. This man had problems because he used the mind for himself, and the mind follows its own patterns. The mind told him, "Faster, faster. If you run fast enough, the shadow cannot follow you." He attributed the failure to not running fast enough. The fault was there from the beginning by running, but the mind cannot say that. It has not been fed for that. It is a computer, a mechanism that must be fed. It cannot give anything new, only return to you what you have put into it. The mind cannot give you anything new. What it gives you is something borrowed. And if you are addicted to listening to what it says, you will always have problems when you want to return to yourself, when a transformation occurs, a turning to the source. Difficulties will then arise, and the mind becomes utterly useless, even more, an obstacle, something harmful. You have to forget about it. One thing I have heard told one day, the son of Mulan Ruddin came home from his progressive study center with a book on sexology. His mother felt very uncomfortable, but waited for the mun to arrive. Something had to be done. That progressive center was going too far. When Mullah Nasruddin arrived, his wife showed him the book. Nasruddin went up to look for his son. He found him in his room, kissing the maid. He told him, "Son, when you finish your chores, come down to see me." The logic has its steps, and one step follows another, and so on. That man followed the mind. He ran faster and faster without stopping until he fell dead. Faster and faster without stopping, only death can ensue. Have you stopped to observe that life has not yet befallen you? Have you stopped to think that you have never had a single moment of life as such, that you have not experienced a single moment of the bliss of which Chuang Tzu and Buddha speak? And what will happen to you? Nothing will happen to you except death. And the closer you get to death, the faster you run, because you think that if you go faster, you will escape. Where are you going so fast? Human beings and the human mind have always gone mad with speed, as if we were going somewhere and had to go quickly, faster and faster. But where are you going? In the end, whether you go quickly or slowly, you reach death, and everyone arrives at the precise moment without missing a single instant. Everyone gets there at the precise moment. No one arrives late. I have heard it said that some people have arrived at death ahead of time, but never that anyone has arrived late. Some arrive ahead of time thanks to their doctors. He attributed the failure to not running fast enough, so he ran faster and faster without stopping until he fell dead. He did not understand that by simply settling in a shady place, his shadow would vanish. The easiest thing in the world. If you stand in a shaded place where there is no sun, the shadow disappears because it is the sun that creates a shadow. It is the absence of the sun's rays. If you are under the shadow of a tree, your shadow disappears. He did not understand that by simply settling in a shaded place, his shadow would vanish. This shaded place is called silence. It is called inner peace. Do not listen to the mind. Enter the shaded place, into the inner silence where the sun's rays do not penetrate. You remain on the periphery. There is the problem. You stay in the midst of the light of the external world where shadows exist. Close your eyes and enter the shaded zone. The moment you close your eyes, the sun disappears. That is why all meditation is done with closed, because you move toward your own shady area inside. There is no sun or shadow outside. Society and all kinds of shadows are there. Have you stopped to think that your anger, your sex, your greed, your ambition are part of society? If you truly retreat inside and leave society outside, where are the anger and the sex? But remember, at first, when you close your eyes, they do not really close. You carry images from the outside to the inside, and you will encounter the reflection of the same society. But if you continue to move inward, sooner or later, society will stay outside. You are inside. Society is outside. You have moved from the periphery to the center. In this center reigns silence. Neither anger nor not anger, neither sex nor celibacy, neither greed nor not greed, neither violence nor not violence, because all that has remained outside. Also remember that the opposites are outside. Inside you are neither this nor that. You are a simple, pure being. That is what I mean when I speak of being like a god. A pure being without opposites that fight or flee, simply a being. You have moved to the shaded place. He did not understand that by simply moving to a shaded place, his shadow would vanish, and if he sat and stayed still, there would be no more footsteps. It is that simple, but the simple is difficult for the mind, because it always seems easier to run, to fight, because there is something to do. The most difficult thing is to tell the mind to do nothing. The mind will ask, "Give me at least a mantra that I can repeat with my eyes closed. Om, Om, Ram, Ram, something to do, because how are we going to stay without doing anything, with nothing to run after, nothing to pursue? The mind is activity, and being is absolute inactivity. The mind is running, being is staying still. The periphery moves, the center does not. Look at a wheel. It moves, but the center around which it moves is completely static, immobile. Your being is eternally immobile, and the periphery moves continuously. This is the point to remember in the dance of the Sufi whirling meditation. When you practice it, let your body Be the periphery. The body moves, and you remain eternally still. Become a wheel. The body is the wheel, the periphery, and you, the center. After a short time, you will realize that although the body moves faster and faster, inside you notice that you do not move. And the faster the body moves, the better. Because then the contrast is created. Suddenly, you and your body are different, but you move continuously with the body, and there can be no separation. Sit for a moment. That is enough. Simply sit without doing anything. Sitting, close your eyes. Let things balance. It will take time because you have been unbalanced for many lives. You have tried to create problems of all kinds. It is a matter of time, only time. You do not have to do anything. Sit quietly and look. Those who believe in Zen call it Zazen, which means sitting, doing nothing. This is what Chuang Tzu says. He did not understand that by simply settling in a shaded place, his shadow would have vanished. And if he had sat down without moving, there would have been no more footsteps. There was no need to fight or to escape. The only thing needed was to enter the shaded area and stay still. And that is what you have to do all your life. Do not fight against anything, and do not try to escape from anything. Let things follow their course. It is much simpler. Close your eyes and go to the center where not a single ray of sun can penetrate. There's no shadow. And that is the meaning of the myth, that the gods do not cast shadows. Not that there are gods that do not cast shadows, but that the God that is inside you does not cast a shadow, because nothing from the outside can penetrate. It is always in the shaded area. Chuang Tzu calls that place the brimming Tao, the deepest nature of your being. So what to do? First, do not pay attention to the mind. It is a good tool for the outside, but a barrier to the inside. Logic is good for others, but not for oneself. To tackle things, you need logic and doubt. Science depends on doubt, and religiosity on faith, on trust. Simply sit with full confidence that your inner nature will prevail. It always happens that way. You just have to wait patiently, and whatever your mind says, do not pay attention. Listen to your mind for the external world, but not for the inside. Set it aside, and there is no need to fight with it, because if you fight, it may influence you. Simply set it aside. That is what faith consists of. Faith does not consist of a fight with the mind. If you fight, the enemy impresses you. And remember that not even friends have as much influence as enemies. If you continuously fight against someone, they will influence you, because you will have to use the same techniques for the fight. Enemies come to resemble each other. It is very difficult to keep away from the enemy and maintain distance. It ends up influencing you, and those who start to fight with the mind become great philosophers. Although they talk about the antum, their discourse revolves around the mind. They may say to oppose the mind, but whatever they say comes from the mind, even their enmity. You have to continue with the enemy, and in the end, the enemies come to an agreement and become the same. Remember, do not fight with the mind, because if not, you will have to bend to the agreement. If you want to convince the mind, you have to argue, and therein lies the problem. If you want to convince the mind, you have to use words. Simply set it aside. Do not try to go against the mind, but to set it aside. Just as when you go out on the street, you put on your shoes, and when you return home, you take them off. No fight, nothing. You do not tell the shoes, I'm going to enter the house, and I no longer need you, so I'm going to leave you. Simply, you take them off, because you no longer need them. It's that simple, without fights. The easy is good. No fights, no conflicts. Simply set the mind aside, move to the inner shade, and sit down. Then you do not hear footsteps. No shadow follows you. You are like a god, and you can only become what you already are. That is why I tell you that you are like a god, that you are a god. Do not settle for less. You are like a god.